Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 194th episode of our first YouTube run through the House of Light expansion for Book of Hours. I'm System Chalk. We are just on the last day of summer, which is, I guess we've just crossed the official last day of summer in the real world, and it's definitely starting to look like fall. But I got a little bit of time before it's going to start getting uncomfortably cold in where I live. So let's. I guess I said I was going to start by seeing if I could commit some things to the Tree of Wisdoms. So this is a couple of episodes ago now, but the original plan was. Oh dear. Sorry. Got a few things I need to cycle through. Okay. Oh yeah, actually, and I didn't even get rid of some of my old notes here, so I'll take a second just to clear these out here. So the original plan was to try and do roughly 2 branches a stream. Now that didn't exactly turn out. I sometimes did more, sometimes did less, and then I was interrupted because I had gotten so used to just reading top to bottom on some notes that I put down that I didn't realize I did things out of order. So I've said this a couple of times, but it doesn't hurt just to reiterate where this all goes. I had a few spots where I knew I was going to be putting some lessons. So like a great example here would be what we did with Ithistry, which was really glass blowing, bells and braziers, and Glazierian lightsmithing. So those were 3 where I knew they were going to be going in. There were only 3 more slots after we had the Inks of Revelation placed. That didn't require a whole lot of thought. And so there were a few of these. Actually, funnily enough, I think Meniscate Reflections was also supposed to go in position 3. But what was funny there was that it didn't really matter because all of this had been leveled up to such an extent that it just wasn't that big of a deal. But where this became a problem was Herbs and Infusions was supposed to be in position 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And we've got excuse me, Furs and Feathers there instead. And of course, I realized the problem after I've committed Desires and Dissolutions, which was supposed to be in position 7. So right now, in terms of Bosk, we've got position 6, 7, 8, and 9 unaccounted for. Now, I think we are okay. So the way it was supposed to go was Herbs and Infusions for, I guess, Orchids and Narcotics 5. It looks like there's actually 2 6s here, which worries me a little bit. Furs and Feathers 6, Desires and Dissolutions 7, and Insects and Nectars 8, and Drums and Dances 9. So really, as long as I can get 6 and 7 taken care of, I should be in good shape. And from there, that would just be Herbs and Infusions for 6, Orchids and Narcotics for 7, and then we're home free. So let's get that right now. And just as a reminder, Bosk is the lore of the primeval wood, rarely written, often felt. Herbs and Infusions, pluck it, powder it, mix it, warm it, drink it. But not that one. The root and the source. In the innermost walled garden of the palace of the shadowless kings in Persia, there grew a yew tree older than any other. Its root was red, its flowers were black, its berries were white. The kings would leave their girl children overnight in the nest of its roots, in memory of the great mother of their line, and so their daughters were assured health, longevity, and wisdom. This is the source of all our science, and this is Bosk. As an aside, too, I don't want to spend too much time talking about sort of how to dig into the setting, because I kind of feel everybody's journey is going to be individual on that. But this would be another example, right, where you see multiple references to the Shadowless Kings. Probably by the time you've gotten to this point, you would know that they are in Persia. Or rather, were in Persia. But if you hadn't, this is a point where it comes right out and says it. So this is another one of the kind of, every once in a while I'll talk about how people's different journeys through the house are going to lead them to different conclusions. That can even apply in this case here, where sometimes you just haven't been following a particular thread, or maybe you haven't thought it was interesting to follow, or you were focused on something else. In these cases, this would be a point where it just gives that marker to you, and you're like, oh, okay, actually that reminds me, the Shadowless Kings came up in ... and now I'm not entirely sure the Shadowless Empire. There are other reasons to sort of think that it's based in Persia. There's just other things about the Shadowless Empire that probably would catch people's attention and lead them to certain conclusions anyway. But again, it's a little bit like inspiration. Nobody has a great sort of grand theory about how it strikes. It's a little bit different for everyone, and if you take the general principles that have been taken out, probably you aren't going to get a recipe for inspiration. So it's always nice to just, for me at least, I like to flag where those come from so I can recognize it a little bit closer to the source, and then maybe sort of see what triggers insight for me. And this gets me Arab. Orchids and narcotics. There is no greed without beauty. The Grail's births. Learn from blood and drink from the earth. The red Grail brought forth the hours called Flower Maker and Beach Crow, who know where in the wood we can find delight. These are the temptations of Bosk. Next up, insects and nectars. The hive, the nest, and the chrysalids are the three secret principalities of the lesser world. Two of those three know the temptations of sweetness. The Grail's flavorlings. Favorlings, not flavorlings. The Grail's favorlings. The bright-winged, dark-winged Glaterflog kind called themselves the Grail's favorlings. They are gone now, like all the Carapace kinds, but we can still use the arts of the hive to glean the sweetness in the hidden places of the wood, the legacy of the Carapace cross. Bosk. And finally, drums and dances. The first musics were not made by mortals, but taken from Sandcoil and Sea Thorn, from Flint Heart and Dragon Womb. The root, the Thunderskin, the eternal drum that beats to preserve the skin of the world, is a god from flesh, which is to say he was once mortal. He died to preserve the last god from stone. He died for love. He died for necessity. In matters of Bosk, these three are often intertwined. And grants us health. All right. So I figure at this point we'll just do the Arts Unregarded, and we will have the full tree. At a later point I will read through everything, but it feels nice to just kind of have this capstone of the final batch of arts. So we are on to preservation, and I've learned my lesson. I will be reading a little bit more carefully. So preservation, healing, restoration, renewal. Of all the arts unregarded, preservation is most commonly dismissed by adepts as unworthy of attention. And we are starting with 5, which in this case will be Magaphine Mysteries. The greater plagues may not be cured, only bound. The very greatest of all may only be entreated, and it is death to do so improperly. Rebirth. The gods who are, which we call the hours, ward against the gods from stone and cast them down. What remains of the gods from stone we call plague, scourge, catastrophe. But if the gods from stone were reborn, would they still be plagues? Would renewal bring peace? The arts unregarded hint that it might be so. Next up, Hill and Hollow, which once upon a time was supposed to be 6. The ways of the hill children and the gods from stone, old paths, old secrets, the songs that still echo beneath the earth. How they endured. In the beginning, the Carapace cross served the first hours, the gods born from stone. When the gods from stone were defeated, where could the cross go? Into the hills, into the bounds, and into us. This is how humankind came to be, and in our most secret hollows the cross endures. This is a matter of preservation. Edicts Inviolable. The precepts and occlusion and the precepts of occlusion and disillusion. They're jealous I cannot read today. Edicts inviolable. The precepts of occlusion and dissolution. Their joyous enforcement is the nature of Calyptra. Night. The velvet is not the oldest hour, but she is the oldest hour of Calyptra. The black flower on the watchman's tree is the preservation of secrets, and without it the tree would fall. This is a matter of preservation. Stone stories. Of the earth, of its forms, of dwellers living and dead. A vigilance. The hours once called flint and the wheel are gone, but their blood of their... Once again. A vigilance. The hours once called flint and the wheel are gone, but the blood of their name emanations was mingled with the blood of mortals, and from it sprang the line of Antaios. As long as the Antaian line continues, the legacy of flint and wheel may endure. This, then, is preservation. And finally, Tridesma Hyra. The rites of the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot, which include certain mysteries of the dwellers in the wood behind the world. The light, the night, the wood. What lit the wood in the days before its darkening? There was a light upon the earth long before glory came to the sky. Preserve the night, and the light might return. And finally, birdsong. So we start with rhyme and remembrance. A reminder here that birdsong, music, riddles, miscellanea, if the gods gossiped. Now, what I'm slightly curious about here, this says birdsong 4, so we've got 1, 2, 3. Isn't this birdsong 4? Okay. Rhyme and remembrance. To speak with the dead, to torment the living. Sorry, let's try that one more time. Music, riddles, miscellanea, if the gods gossiped. Rhyme and remembrance. To speak with the dead, to torment the living, to celebrate both. What we were. The shapes that loped beside you in the frost. The scraps you gleaned of call and periost. Once these were answers to what may be lost. All part of the matter we call birdsong. Sand stories. Of wandering tribes, watchful vagabonds, and winged devourers. A city. The 7 tainted immortals we call legions are relentless in their appetite, and outcast under the laws of heaven, but they have their uses to the hours. The legion Cleidocus has known all the great keys, and even now she holds the key of days. So every year she meets the vagabond in Vienna to exchange the names of lesser keys for the stories of the vagabond's travels. We call their gossip birdsong. Path and pilgrim. The traveler is always returning. One who does not is no traveler. Aaron Peel. The threshold. Every traveler crosses a threshold twice. The horned axe is the hour who faces both ways at every threshold. Find the answer to her riddles in birdsong. Sea stories. The sea has always been the widest road. The Seaborn. The Legion Morgan, holder of the key of black sapphire, called Seaborn Tide Drawn. Did she come from yeas behind the wave? If we speak her name at the rising of the moon, can we summon that old song of flutes and bells? These are birdsong riddles. Leaves and thorns, there is no scent without sorrow. Looking up. The gardener's first lesson is this: look up. What starts as weather ends in the world. What starts as sky ends in the soil. This is what the birds know, and the birds know most things first. Sky stories. The nine winds gossip, and sometimes we can listen. The roost, a thief of sights, a scavenger of thrones, a border reaver and a thief of knots, a thief of colors and a thief of bones. This is birdsong. And that is our full tree of wisdoms. So it's also kind of interesting for me here to see what I've got to work with. Oh, sorry, that's not entirely true, actually. There are a couple of things that I can do. Or sorry, there's one more thing I can do to get another element of the soul. I actually feel I have considerably less whist than I was expecting. But yeah, so the way that I'm treating this right now is that I technically want 6 of a given element of the soul. Now, what's important here is that one of the upgraded ones also counts towards the towards the total. But I do want to be a little careful, but at this point I also want to try and advance my elements of the soul, because I'm no longer at a point with all of these being committed. I believe if I take the committed sign here, I've never been able to find the empty spaces when it's a big collection like this anyway. But basically, I can no longer break these apart in Numa. And so at this point here, the questions, really what I want to do with the various elements are going to be, or the various skills, is level them up. Now, there may be an argument to having lots of elements of the soul just so that I can generate the memories for that. But even if I have 6 of everything, that's quite a bit. So eventually, over time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start leveling these various skills up. And maybe what I'll do, if I want to level up a shaft, what I can do here... I actually need to have a little bit of a think of this. First thing I need to do is identify one of the ones that, So I'm not limited to just using my skills to level them up. Yeah, I don't know. I have other things to do, so I will maybe focus on the turquoise hand for the moment. But I'm going to leave open the possibility of leveling up some skills over the course of the day. So, the turquoise hand, we've said that it's going to give me potentially 2 pentiments and precursors lessons, and I have since decided that I will level up serpents and venoms, and resurgences and emergences doing this. This is fine. Oh, right, yeah. Okay, so I sort of messed this up a little bit, but that's fine. So it's a rose challenge. So we'll add the fet, and I think probably preliminary meter would be sufficient. No, hang on, I'm short 1. So technically there's something else that I could add here, but if I go for pearl and tide, it's probably overkill, frankly. It's funny I don't have an 8 to work with. Oh, maybe Path and Pilgrim? Yep. Oh, and Ramson will probably... Oh no, sorry, that's Moth in the Sky. This language has been called Mantik al-Tair and Lengua al-Kel, and the speech of birds, and Ramsund, and the hazelnut tongue. But it's a language of secrets, and its true name may never be used. The Aviform Hours use it at their roost, or so the story goes. Okay, now from there, the focus is going to be on leveling up serpents and venoms and resurgences and emergences. So this means I'm going to start by getting as much moth and grail as I can. So starting with Impulse would be a good place to start. I guess we did Most Sorrowful. Nope, we did Damascene Tradition. So a true and complete accounting of the Asclepian mysteries of the roots of the house. Okay. Again, Moth and Grail. The Wonderful Shape. So that's 2. Oops. Three. And I guess we go for the Grail here. And then just to double check, yep, so that's the 4 that we need for Resurgences and Emergences. So now we're going to focus on getting Moon and Scale. Technically, we will already have some from the Confounding Parables, so we're already up the 1. I think we've done all of these at this point. So that's 2. I guess Contradiction and... yeah, we'll do an Exorcist Field Manual, and I'm trying to remember. I don't think I've done Voyages of Furnishin lately. Okay, so that should set me up with the 2 levels that I want to get out of this. Now, if I want to use the consider verb for something, now would be a good time, because I'm going to be waiting at least a minute on... actually, more than a minute, because I need to read the text. So now strikes me as a very good time to start opening up these containers. A mottled casket, a treasure donated by a disgraced Triangularis assassin. Something unregarded, what overlooked delight. Now we'll still have an interaction with Igdistis and Easton. Like, I'm probably going to want to talk about a book with at least one of them. I think we'll save the sealed vault for tomorrow. Or, sorry, next season. But maybe now is the time for me to think about leveling up my first... I think what I'll maybe do here is I'll start with Shapt. Assuming that I didn't lock away the... I'm pretty sure at least one of those languages gave me a Shapt to work with, but anyways. Alright, Serpents and Venoms. So I do want to be a little careful about how quickly I lock this away, but this is going to be Scolacosophy. So now, unfortunately... oh, that will work. Okay. Right, Hushery. Really? This isn't Scolacosophy? Yeah, there you go. But it didn't flash. Alright, so it's been a while since I've tried to level one of these up. So if we take this... okay, well clearly... Evolve via Skolakosophy. I could use Skolakosophy with this to evolve my soul. Once you've committed a skill to the Skolakosophy wisdom, you can use that skill with this to combine 2 identical soul cards into a greater one. But you must use a skill you've attuned to that wisdom, and that attunement will only work once. So I suppose the drawback here is that because this doesn't have... Maybe that's a consideration for me to make in future, but because I don't have the... Like, this was moon and scale, and because there's no moon and scale here, I've kind of closed that off from being a useful upgrade. Now, that doesn't mean... That's fascinating that that's not... Okay, now it is. But I'm trying to remember if there's any other Skolakosophy. All right, there's one there. And actually, that one should help us with the moon, so... But I can't put another soul in there. And I really made this tricky for my... Okay. Yeah, but that won't take the skill. So I may need to resort to other methods to use this one, because I don't think we get a bunch of Skolakosophy stations in this part of the house. I'll obviously take a look just to make sure that I've done my due diligence, but I think as far as upgrades go, we're going to have to pass over Serpents and Venoms in favor of other tools. So, Ragged Crossroads. That could work. Skolakosophy will dissolve the limitations of my shaft. Ah, 3 minutes. Okay, well actually there's a different approach we can take for this, which would be to say, as long as we're at the, as long as we're not overdoing it on some of these limits. So for instance, I know I have enough metal, or no, in this case with the 7, technically I don't, although I also have applied the metal elsewhere, but we'll try and keep it. As long as these stay above 6, I should be willing to throw one of these in for an upgrade. So for instance, I'd love to do this with the Fat, but because technically we're at 6 here, I'm going to leave that aside. But I do have a surplus of Faust, so now I can use Ericapean, assuming I find something attuned to Illumination, which I'm expecting shouldn't be that hard. Silly me for looking in the Church of the Unconquered Sun for something to move up Illumination. Okay, so Ericapean, yep. Brighten my Faust. Use Illumination to focus my inner radiance. Right. Hanevek. Okay, Whist is already occupied, but and I'd take Arab down to 5. But I can use my Tryst, provided I find somewhere for Birdsong. It's a little much to expect that, but possibly one of the... no, actually, that's almost certainly wrong. Yeah. This is one of the... This would be very funny if it was Birdsong Shrine. Yeah, this is definitely one area where I have very bad intuitions in terms of what areas I should expect certain upgrades with. It's nice to see preservation there, though. Bells strike me as it would being a Horamakastry thing, or Ithistry, it turns out. The Great Clock is the Horamakastry. Can't see the workbench being interesting. This is Horamakastry. Bosk. Not relevant. Presumably the bed and the workbench don't mean anything there. This is Bosk. I didn't even think about the pond. Okay. Again, Skolakosophy here. Hushery, also Hushery. That shouldn't be a surprise. Bosk, Nyctodromy. Bosk again? Nope, preservation. Not relevant. Relevant. I didn't think this one would be, but still good to check. Not really expecting these workstations to do things, but again, you can get the training dummy, so I want to at least eliminate the possibilities. I don't think any of the... Whoa! Okay, shows what I know. So the quivering double bass... Interesting, everything but the piano. What does Weather Factory have against the grand piano? Alright then. Now this one probably won't help me as far as the... unless I can put 2 elements of the soul. But the Sunset Harp should help. Except the Sabazine takes Moth. Ha. Oh, but this does give me a chance to highlight the other... I suppose in hindsight I should have tried the musical instruments earlier, but in my defense, I was basing that off of the grand piano, which does not have one of those upgrade symbols. However, it looks like I am stuck with the... Looks like I'm stuck with the instruments. So that just means that we're going to find an alternative. So one other thing, so I am aware that this is not my only option in terms of upgrading my elements of the soul. One of the reasons why I'm doing it this way is I actually very rarely use these to do the upgrades. So this is kind of my opportunity to get a little more practice. Actually, the Faust is at 6, so I shouldn't be messing with that. Metal's at 7, so don't mess with it. Trist is at 6. So it's got to be health and core at this point. So stitching and binding, which is a preservation. That should work. Intensify my core. Preservation. A heart still beats beneath the world's skin. And so that leaves me with the health, and then that'll be it for upgrades. Now I would be rather surprised if the health isn't a well, I know it's more than just preservation, but definitely that's the one I'm expecting to see. Quenchings and quelling. You know what? I think we should be able to get by with the drums there. train my health, preservation. The earth endures, and so do I. Okay, so that was, again, this is partly for the benefit of my education. I still have stuff that I can do over the course of the day, but at this point, I think we're going to wait for Aeson and Ecdistis. My next goal is going to be to open these containers, and then after that, there is a temptation. I do want to sort of finish off the various busts, and one of the things I was hoping to do would be to read the various texts and then investigate the busts. But my rule for that has always been, once I've exhausted other possibilities, that's when I really should be looking at the various busts to move, to add them to the stairs. But it also has occurred to me that I have effectively taken up the stream with all of these upgrades and the Tree of Wisdoms. So I'm going to have to leave all of the implementation of these plans for the next episode. I should probably make a note on the episode. The problem is I know the comments tend not to be read that much, but yes, we will actually get to the end of summer in the next probably episode. I would suspect it'll probably be 2 episodes for that, just because while I won't be doing all of the upgrades for the elements of the soul, what I will be doing is I'll be working through the various upgrades and such. But again, all of that in tomorrow's episode and beyond. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.